I know that some of you guys might think I'm crazy, but the Denver Broncos should not extend Nik Bonitto's contract, at least not yet. The Denver Broncos entering this season have 4 priority players who are looking for contract extensions: Nik Bonitto, Courtland Sutton, Zach Allen, and John Franklin Myers. It is widely debated across Broncos country which player is at the top of that priority list, Nik Bonitto or Zach Allen. For me, I think that the Denver Broncos need to pump the brakes a little bit on giving out a big extension to Nik Bonitto. It was reported this offseason that Bonitto is looking for a deal that exceeds $20 million per year. $20 million per year in average annual value would place him around the 11th highest paid edge rusher in the NFL. I believe that Bonitto is probably looking for even more than that. And I know people are going to say, but Gage, Nik Bonitto had 13.5 sacks last year after having 8 sacks in 2023. This should be a no-brainer. Well, as I always like to say, I like to look beyond the raw stats here on this channel. I like to look at both the film as well as the advanced stats. And in order to refresh my memory, right before I sat down to record this video, I took a look at all 13.5 of Nik Bonitto's sacks and I charted them. And here is what I came up with, because not all sacks are the same and every sack has a story behind it. If you look at each and every sack, just 5 of them were true wins up front by Nik Bonitto, where he is dominating the tackle at the line of scrimmage, where you can truly say that he individually won the rep and there wasn't anything that the tackle could do in order to beat Nik Bonitto on that rep. So he had 5 true wins on his sacks on the season. Now, 4 of these sacks were bad sets by the offensive tackle. They took a bad angle, they didn't have the right leverage, and Bonitto was basically able to run right past them. So those sacks were basically free sacks for Bonitto because the tackle was wrong and he ended up taking a bad set and he wasn't correct on the play. Then 4.5 of them were cleanup sacks where either his teammate won and Nik Bonitto was getting the cleanup sack afterwards, or the quarterback was just holding the ball for too long and Nik Bonitto was able to get off of his block and clean up the quarterback for a sack. So, like I said, not all sacks are the same and each sack has a different story behind it. And when you look at this, there are only 5 sacks here where you can truly say it was an impressive, dominant win by Nik Bonitto. Again, man, that is definitely something to be at least a little bit concerned about. But also, when you take a look at the more advanced stats beyond the sacks here, I gotta be honest, man, they're a little bit underwhelming. 57 pressures last year, which was 18th best amongst edge rushers in the NFL, and that was after having 13.5 sacks, which was the 3rd best in the NFL. A 12.4 pass rush win rate, which is 48th in the NFL. 10 non-sack quarterback hits, tied for 19th in the NFL. 32 quarterback hurries, 26th in the NFL. And here's the stat that caught me by surprise the most. I saw this in a graphic a while back, and it was definitely surprising. 7 of Nik Bonitto's sacks were in garbage time, meaning that the win probability was either above 95% or below 5%. The game had already been decided when Nik Bonitto got 7 of his sacks. I'm not saying here that the Denver Broncos shouldn't pay Nik Bonitto and that they should just let him walk when his contract is up next year. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that the Denver Broncos should take a bit of a wait-and-see approach here with Nik Bonitto. If entering next season at the beginning of the year, he's still producing at the same level or beyond the level that he was producing last year, then fantastic. Extend him. It's a no-brainer at that point. But if his numbers have taken a dip, if he's not producing at the same level that he was last year, then Denver should probably wait to extend him long term and maybe start thinking about the franchise tag option. The Broncos could place the franchise tag on Bonitto at the end of next year if he doesn't produce quite at the level that he did last year and say, okay, it's going to be basically a make or break year for you in 2026. You're either going to earn the long-term extension here in Denver or we're going to let you walk. So I think that is probably going to be the avenue that the Broncos end up taking if Nik Bonitto does not produce at the same level in 2025. But again, the Broncos are not afraid to give out in-season extensions. They gave out an in-season extension last year to Garrett Bowles. So if Nik Bonitto is producing at a high level, let's say by week 6, then I do believe he will be rewarded with a long-term extension. But extending Bonitto before the season begins would be a bit of a mistake in my opinion. Another thing that I do want to touch on here is how much of Nik Bonitto's success can be attributed to having Zach Allen on the defensive line. Zach Allen is a guy who commands a lot of double teams, and if you're an offense, there's only so many guys that you can double team. So Nik Bonitto is getting a lot of one-on-one matchups, and most of his sacks came in one-on-one situations. What happens if offenses start to slide the protection towards Nik Bonitto and he has to deal with a lot more double teams? I'm wondering if he's going to be able to handle that. Another thing I want to touch on here, and I don't have a graphic for it, but Nik Bonitto's run defense also leaves something to be desired. He had a 60.0 PFF run defense grade last year, and I know PFF grades aren't everybody's cup of tea, but as I always like to say, they're a good baseline tool to evaluate players based on their film. That was 70th in the NFL across all edge rushers. That is not a good metric at all. And then he had a 24.1 missed tackle percentage in the run game, which is the 11th highest amongst edge rushers in the NFL. So Nik Bonitto still has some issues in the run game. He is a little bit of a smaller edge rusher, so that is somewhat to be expected. But the top edge rushers in the NFL, especially the guys that are getting paid $20+ million a year, are also good run defenders. They're not just good pass rushers. So when you look at this from a wider lens, I honestly believe that paying Nik Bonitto before the beginning of the season would be a massive mistake by the Denver Broncos, and I think that they need to take their time in making this decision on how much they want to pay Bonitto before they are hurrying up to sign the contract, basically. So, at the end of the day, I think that the Denver Broncos being conservative here is the right way to go. Another reason why I think being conservative is the right move for the Denver Broncos is because of the sheer depth that they have at edge rusher. They're already paying Jonathan Cooper on a pretty large extension. Then you've got guys like Jonah Ellis, Dondre Tillman, you just drafted Q Robinson, and you signed Johnny Walker out of Mizzou as an undrafted free agent, who my pro comp for him coming out was kind of a dollar store Diet Coke Nik Bonitto. If these guys step up for you next year, then Nik Bonitto could be expendable, especially as you are looking to extend Zach Allen. You're looking to extend John Franklin Myers. You're possibly looking to extend Cortland Sutton. And, oh yeah, you're eventually going to have to pay your franchise quarterback in Bo Nix too. So the Denver Broncos, despite having cash-rich owners, you still have to manipulate the salary cap somewhat, and probably at least one of these guys is going to be the odd man out, and Nik Bonitto is probably one of the more realistic candidates to be the odd man out. So let me know in the comment section below, guys, how do you think the Denver Broncos should approach this whole Nik Bonitto extension thing? Do you think that they should wait to extend him until he proves that he can produce at that level again, or do you think that they should take care of him before the season starts and just not piss him off? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts, as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video, as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And before we get out of here, guys, I want to tell you about the affiliate partner for today's video, Green Gridiron Helmets. Use code DENSYN, DENSYN, link in the description below to save off your your first purchase on authentic NFL helmets. From small replicas like this little one behind me to full-size authentic helmets. Again, that is code DENSYN, DENSYN, link in the description below to save off your first purchase from Green Gridiron Helmets. Thank you so much to them. And until next time, guys, I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.